Hey everyone, it's Jim
and Charles
from Mellow Amps, and welcome to our music room.
And the final episode.
Yeah. So we've installed a matched pair of 6080s, and the amp is ready to be plugged in. So it's always good to put a load on a power amplifier, and the load is your headphones. So before we start turning things on, let's go and plug in a great sounding but fairly inexpensive pair of 80 ohm headphones. Now 80 ohms is about as low as you can go. I think in the specifications you can go a little bit lower than that.
74 or something like that, but nobody makes a 74 ohm set of headphones as far as we know.
So OTL amps sound absolutely stunning. The clarity of a Class A OTL amp, if you haven't heard one before, get ready to be surprised. They have one weakness, and that is that impedance matching has its limits. And in the case of a paralleled 6AS7 or 6082, as in this case, that is about the mid 75 ohms. Do not try and play music with a 50 or 40 ohm pair of headphones. You'll hear sound, you'll lose a lot of power, and you'll lose, the bass will roll off.
Yeah, a lot of the bass will roll off.
Yeah. So before I forget it, the operating manual is filled with all kinds of useful stuff, and if you haven't found it already, there's a sheet that shows first steps in getting your amp going. So go ahead and grab that and read it through.
If you don't have a paper copy of it, it's available online on the website under the product section of the store. The latest version will be up there, along with the addendum section, which will have any changes that have been made to the amp since it was released.
Yeah, and it's always a free download. In fact, all of our downloads are always free. Okay, so let's get the power cord and the switch mode plugged in. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this before. It's really important that you have the correct switch mode. Charles, why don't you grab the brick off the floor?
So here it is. This is our 6-volt 8 amp. We like to label them in-house here because we have a bunch of lower amperage 6 volts and 12 volt supplies around, so this allows us to quickly identify them.
Heck, we even have 36 volt switch modes for various projects.
So we're currently off on the back here while we're plugging these in. And there we go, nice and secure.
And let's get our signal plugged in. In this case, we're just using an inexpensive FiO. In fact, this is one of the early generation FiOs that sounds really very good. And I use it for a lot of quick testing because it's an inexpensive device to have kicking around.
And this is something good to be aware of here. Whenever your cables are coming into these inputs, keep them off the tubes. They get very hot. So if you can, have them coming off of the side, the back, straight down the middle. Just don't let them lean on those tubes for a long period.
Yeah. So Charles is just turning on our music player.
Okay.
He's going to tee up the very first track. A lot of people will do videos in which they sort of fake startups. Well, we try not to do that. This amp's never been listened to. So we've already done the basic bench testing and or troubleshooting. But if you follow the build instructions carefully, you probably had really good tight electrical measurements. So you know electrically the amp's working properly. If you've got a pair of tested and matched and listened to, we listen to all the tubes we sell, or as many as we possibly can. We have a huge selection of amps here, so pretty much every tube we specialize in, including all the power tubes, we can actually listen to them in circuit. I listen to them with headphones, or Charles listens to them with headphones to make sure that they're working properly and that there's no noise. So we've got the music teed up. We're going to turn on the amp, and this is really important now. Make sure that whatever your device is that you're controlling the volume with is turned down. Now, we don't have a preamp in circuit, so we're actually going to be using this as our preamp. So Charles is turning the volume way down.
So it's going all the way down
now,
because this is a very sensitive amplifier.
Don't turn it down to 0, but turn it down to 10% or something like that. And you don't want to put headphones right on your ears initially when you do a startup test in particular, or when you're with a new piece of gear and you're not sure what the volume is. You don't want to damage your hearing. So what I like to do is I just stick them above my ears. I know it looks funny. So we're on. It's going to take, these are big hot tubes, and if they're cold and they haven't been run, it's going to take at least 30 seconds for them to get up to temperature and your music start to play. But while you're waiting, you can check the fan in the back. You'll hear it a little bit, and you can actually feel, you should be able to feel the cold air coming off of the fan. That's really important. Really important. You've got to have fan cooling, or this amp will get too hot inside. Mm-hmm. So with the volume turned down, I'm starting to hear some really good sounds coming up, and I can actually see my filaments are lamping here. It's way cool. And I'm going to listen to my first track, and wow.
And for those curious, I have queued up Miles Davis's Kind of Blue. This is Flamenco Sketches.
Oh, one of my favorite tracks, and it's just absolutely stunning. Now, this is an 80 ohm pair of Bear Dynamics. It's the DT 770 Pros. They're actually mostly for studio work, and I use them in my home studio, and they're fabulous headphones. They're not quite audiophile headphones, but for the money, they are absolutely...
They're excellent budget headphones.
Yeah, I would say they're a best buy. And in fact, we bought them because they're 80 ohms. And I think they come in a 150 or 160 ohm version as well. And what we wanted to do was have a pair of decent 80 ohm headphones that were affordable, just to test the sound quality and see how this worked at 80 ohms. Now the amp has been swept. In fact, in the manual there are sweeps showing you the frequency response. And at 80 ohms we get really excellent bass performance. And as you get below 80 ohms, you can see we slowly start to get worse. Now our main audiophile headphones, other than our planar magnetics, which we absolutely adore,
but are very low impedance and not designed for this guy.
As far as I know, there is no OTL amp that was really designed to handle low impedance headphones. That really should be a transformer coupled headphone amp. And someday maybe we actually have one. Maybe we'll release the prototype. But for now, this is our favoriteest and bestest headphone amp. So I really love these Sennheisers. My years going back, almost 50 years, my first pair of headphones were Sennheisers. German engineering, German construction. I think they're starting to build more and more of them offshore, but the quality is still excellent. These are the HD 660Ss, and these things are efficient. They're 150 ohm, 104 dB.
These are the most efficient headphones we have.
Yeah, in fact, that's getting pretty close to the top. With these, the detail in the music you can hear is absolutely phenomenal. With efficient headphones, be very careful though. If you had the volume, if you're used to the volume on a lower pair of efficient headphones like the Bear Dynamics, you've got to turn it down before you plug these in, because with that level of efficiency, they'll get loud a lot quicker.
It's actually good to do that anyway. Anytime you're starting up the amp and going to listen to music, turn down your volume on your preamp or on your music source, and that just protects your ears, because this can get incredibly loud very, very quickly. It has way more power than what it needs. And you could very quickly blow out your headphones, blow out your eardrums, so don't do that.
Yeah. Now, if we want to improve the sound quality, we can try rolling in an earlier type of 6080, the 6AS7. In fact, one of my favorite tubes is the Svetlana version of the 6AS7. They test brilliantly, they're long-lasting tubes, they sound amazing. Are they better than the 6080s? I would think there's a tiny subtle difference that I prefer.
It depends on the version though.
Yeah, it depends on the version. You may prefer some of the Japanese 6080s that we carry, And the wonderful thing about the 60AS7 and 6080 is they're not incredibly expensive tubes.
And a lot of manufacturers made them all over the place.
Yeah, and we specialize in them. So there's a good selection in the store. And, you know, I think if I was really into this, and I am, I'd probably have at least one really good pair of 6AS7s and one really good pair of 6080s. But, you know, the choice is yours. The tube rolling options are almost infinite. And if you want to improve the sound, the tubes are important. In fact, the tubes are the
amplifiers.
Yeah, never forget that. I know it took a lot of work and a lot of components to get to this point, and it would be nice to think that those components are actually the amplifiers, but all they do is actually set the operating point, provide the voltage and current that these tubes need, couple it so that it can come safely to your headphones. So yeah, so the tubes are important. The headphones, headphones are huge. They make an absolutely huge difference.
Your music source, if you have good quality, well-mastered music, that's a decent recording.
And your preamp. So a lot of you will probably rely on your DAC, your streaming device, your digital music player to provide a volume control, and that's fine. In many cases, that's actually not a passive volume control, though it's a digital volume control. And those are not the best, particularly as they get turned down, because the noise floor of the device stays constant. Just like the OTL power amp, the bass noise floor is always there. It's running in pure Class A at full power all the time.
Non-stop.
Non-stop. Which is why, even with the level of filtering and design that we put into this, with extremely efficient headphones, if you listen very carefully, you can actually get a hint of the power supply noise. It's not easy to hear. In fact, you'll forget it's there even. With less efficient headphones, you won't hear a single thing because they just don't have that level of efficiency. Mm-hmm. So with digital devices and digital volume controls, it's not the best, because with headphones you're probably turning it down quite a bit, so the noise floor of the parent device comes up. And that brings me to a point. This thing is so low noise that any noise before the system, before the headphone power amp, that noise gets amplified. So it's really important that whatever your source is, that it's very low noise. So if you wanted to upgrade the sound, I would go with a good source DAC of some sort, or a turntable with the modern line phono preamp would be stunning. And I would put a high quality preamp in circuit. And that will give you a really good quality preamp. Will have a passive volume control.
And more options for rolling and tweaking the sound a little bit along the way.
Yeah. But for starters, an inexpensive digital music player like an early FiO, or we have the Con Cube as our, you know, our
higher end version.
Yeah, yeah, when we're not blowing them up. So that's why we have two of everything. So yeah, one of the earliest prototypes killed one of our Con Cubes, until we fixed it, of course. So anyways, that's a story for another day. Well done, everyone. I would say this is a medium difficulty build. So if you got to this point and your music is just singing, and one thing I almost forgot is we should listen to the noise floor. So Charles is going to pause it, and we should have done this earlier, but I'm just so excited. And when he put Kind of Blue on, I'm like, all I want to do is listen to music. I don't want to do videos.
Well, let's put our more sensitive headphones in. So we're going to disconnect these guys.
Yeah. Now, it's always good practice not to have the headphones on your head, on your ears, when you're changing them out, or when you're changing out gear, or when you're starting up new gear for the first time. It's just a lot safer. If they're really loud, you'll hear it here, like this. So go ahead and plug that in for me, Charles. These are open back, and we're in the music room, which is fairly quiet, but I can actually hear somebody down the street on his motorcycle. But I can hear a very, very, very low hum. But other than that, it's the left and right channels are both quiet. In fact, with open-backed headphones, I can I can hear a little bit of fan noise. So in our system, we actually put our headphone amp a few feet away, or a meter. 3 feet away would be good. And before we sign off, when you install this in your system, I think I look a little darker with the headphones on. When you install this in your system, these are really hot tubes. So it's important that you be careful around them, especially if you have young children in the house or pets. If I had children in the house or pets, I'd put this up higher above them on a very sturdy shelf. If it's just you in your music room or your partner, I would put this somewhere where I didn't have a shelf close to the top, because heat rises, so you want to keep this open. You definitely want to leave the back open so that the hot air can exhaust. You don't want this in an enclosed space. And you want to make sure that you're on a flat, smooth surface underneath so that the cold air can be drawn in through those holes on the bottom, and the warm air can
out the back.
Yeah. So just use some common sense when you're installing this.
And if you're swapping out the tubes, if you're rolling and you've just had them running for a little while, they're going to be very hot. Use a cloth or even an oven mitt to pull them off. They're going to be very toasty, and don't put them on anything that'll burn.
Better still, turn off the amp.
Let them cool down.
Let them cool down, and then life will be a lot simpler. So yeah, congratulations everyone. We really hope you enjoy your new OTL kit headphone power amp. It was an absolute joy, and at the same time a trial to design. I think we have a full year of development work in it, and we have 2 years before that of developing a headphone amplifier, and that's a story for another day. So we'll wish everybody many hours of enjoyable listening.
And now we'll stop talking and let you guys go enjoy some music.
Stay safe, everyone. This is Jim.
And Charles.
Signing off. Cheers, everyone.